So you are at that point where you've got too much work to do, and you've got to make a decision now. Look, am I going to appoint someone to come and help me, or am I going to outsource this to a virtual assistant? Now, in this new connected virtual world, I think it's become a lot more feasible and a lot more almost acceptable to make use of something like virtual services or virtual assistants. However, you've probably never done this before. It's going to be a new journey, and you may be feeling a little bit unsure about where to start, what to consider, and who you can approach. So in my little experience that I've got with this, virtual assistants offers a lot of benefits, but it also may very well be not for you or your business. So today we discuss all those important aspects that you must be considering when you want to make use of a virtual assistant. And we share some practical examples of what works well and what does not. So let's get into today's show. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I don't know, I just got goosebumps as I played the opening. Not so much because of today's show, but I was just quickly catching up with Nikki before the show. And, I just quickly reflected back on 2 days of a fantastic FBI convention. I definitely want to congratulate them on pulling off a fantastic event. There was a lot of moving parts. It was a hybrid event, like in person and virtual. You had 250 people in person there, 850 attending online. It was absolutely mind blowing. And so it was definitely. My wife asked me last night, like, what was the highlight so far? And I like definitely that. And I think the amount of people that I got to connect with again face to face and all of that, it was absolutely amazing. So well done. I am actually very surprised that we have someone from the FBI here this morning. Shame. It has really been pulling out all the stops, but again, well done to them. Anyway, so warm good morning to you. This morning we are talking all about virtual assistants. It's something we've been talking about, or outsourcing. We've talked about quite a lot on the show recently, and on Propulsion Pro on the site. We've also been talking and asking about this. And obviously, I guess the big question is, where do I start and where do I find reputable people, etc. So we found some. These are the same people, by the way, that Derek Notman is always talking about that he's using, and that has really changed his life. So it's the same people. He put me in touch with them, had some meetings and discussions and all sorts of things. So really amazing experience so far. So today we've got Henry Walton, and yesterday when I set it up, I called him Watson. I don't know why, but I did change it back to Walton. Luckily, I picked that up. But Henry is the founder of AVirtual and PrimePixels. We'll talk about those today. But today we're really getting into all sorts of things around virtual assistants and things you should consider, pitfalls. When does it work well? How do you know it's a good fit, etc., etc., etc. So from that end, then we've got Nikki here. Nikki was the one that pulled the short straw, unfortunately. So Nikki is here to do current affairs, but I'm sure there's loads for her to talk about this morning. We have Norma, who's going to be talking about the downside of thinking that I deserve it. And that's an amazing topic. So looking forward to that. Then I got a couple of announcements, and then I'll introduce you to Henry Walton. So, right, so that's it for today, or for this morning. What's ahead? Let me say a very quick good morning. So let me just go back to the top. Tracy was in first this morning. Good morning, Trace. I hope you're doing well. Mr. T, good morning. Nice to see you again. Good morning, Kobus. Working from home for a change. Fantastic. There's me saying hi to Mr. T. Harry, good morning. Hope you're doing well in a warm Pretoria. Yes, it was a bit of raining here yesterday, but not enough to cool anything down. Albert, good morning. I was watching your talk from the GFPC last night because I'm busy putting some things together. So, it was good. Eloise, good morning. It was so awesome to meet you in person. I saw there was even a picture of us. So I don't know if you saw that. But it was awesome. Marcel, good morning. Nice to see you. Jonita, good morning. Nice to see you as well. Thank you for all the advice that you give on the platform and all that. Really appreciate that. Salumi, good morning. It's been a while. Hope you're doing well. Vulizani, Gloria, Hope you are doing well over on LinkedIn. My friend down under, Mr. Mark Lane in Australia. Good morning. Good morning. Eric, good morning. Welcome. Nice to see you. Arun, good morning. Nice to see you. And Mulalo, who I got to meet in person at the FBI convention. Mulalo, good morning. I hope you enjoy this morning with us. All right. So, ladies and gents, with that, let me get into the show. Otherwise, you're never going to get to meet Henry. So here we go with FBI's current affairs.
Good morning everyone, and morning, Francois. As Francois said, the FBI team is a bit tired this morning after the convention, but we could not miss the slot this morning as it was a really big news week. So as everyone have probably heard by now, crypto assets was officially declared a financial product by the FSCA on Wednesday, and it will then be subjected to regulation going forward. Anyone rendering crypto services or selling crypto assets must now be licensed as financial services providers. There will be a time frame that licensing will have to be applied for next year between June and November 2023, or otherwise they might risk a criminal conviction and a 10 million rand fine. However, even though the licensing requirement will only kick in next year, these providers of crypto services and crypto assets must immediately comply with the FI's General Code of Conduct relating to honesty and integrity, and they must also be in good standing. They are also expected to render financial services honestly, fairly, with due skill, care, and diligence. In addition, consumers can now also report complaints in the cryptocurrency space or in the crypto asset space to the Financial Advisory and Intermediary Services Ombud. So, addressing the media on Thursday, the FSCA Commissioner Unathi Kamlana said a key reason for the introduction of these regulations was to protect consumers from the troubling number of crypto scams that have proliferated in the recent years. There has been an aggressive marketing of cryptos by bad actors, and controls are needed to improve the quality of advice being given to consumers. There are wide-ranging allegations of fraud and scams, and the case for regulatory intervention was well made. So if you look at the definition of a crypto asset that was gazetted on Wednesday, it is one that uses cryptography and distributed ledger technology and is not issued by a central bank, but is capable of being traded, transferred, or stored electronically by natural and legal persons for the purpose of payment, investment, and other forms of utility. So this does not mean that crypto assets are legal tender, as that's something that only the South African Reserve Bank can determine. However, this means that the level of protection for crypto investors is now the same as for unit trusts and other financial products. Obviously, there will still be some things to sort out, and we will see how this process works next year, but it is definitely a step in the right direction. And keep an eye on FBI's webinars and CPD offerings. I am pretty sure that we will add some additional information for our members in future to be able to deal with these assets successfully as well. So, as Francois mentioned, the FBI's convention happened over the last 2 days, and it was a roaring success. And if I can take away one thing that I want to share with everybody, it is how wonderful it was to see everybody networking in person again. After every meal and every tea break, it was a struggle to get everyone who was there in person back into the hall to listen to the talks, because you could see that people are just hungry to network with each other. But then I want to congratulate everyone again who received awards at the FBI Gala dinner on Wednesday night. We are so proud of you. The award for the best student in the professional competency exam over the last year went to Brian Nicol. The It Starts With Me award for innovation in the financial planning space went to Ricardo Texera from BDO. Mona Manzambi received the award for diversity and inclusion in the work she's doing there. The Harry Bruce Award for Outstanding Service to the Financial Planning Industry went to Noel May from the FPSB. And then the big one, The award for Financial Planner of the Year went to Palesa Dube. And once again, congratulations to all the winners. Thank you for everyone who attended and helped the FBI with this. And we're looking forward to next year. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Francois.
Sorry for that, Nikki. The outro video was escaping me like the Zoom unmute button usually do in a meeting. Thank you very much for that awesome update. And really, now you can possibly go back to sleep. I'm not sure. Lalani, please send a WhatsApp and say it's okay. But good stuff. Thank you very much for that. Some amazing updates. And again, from our side as well, congrats to all the winners at this year's gala dinner and the awards evening. It was really amazing to be part of that, and a privilege. So yeah, good stuff. Then next up we have Norma, and as I said, Norma is going to be talking about the downside of thinking that I deserve it. So Norma, over to you.
Good morning to everyone. So my topic for today is that our thinking sometimes cannot be very useful. There's sometimes a downside to what we're thinking. So a line that I have seen, especially in myself and some of my clients, is that phrase that we use, I deserve it. So if it's not a problem for you, if it doesn't make you feel bad or lead you to not take action, then that's not a problem. Then you can keep thinking it. But for me, and as I said, a lot of my clients, this phrase of I deserve it isn't very useful. So when I think of I deserve it, I immediately think of, it's a fact that I am reporting in the world. It's like very sneaky because it sounds good, but it doesn't actually make me feel good. And I know when I say things to myself that doesn't feel good, that doesn't drive any positive action. So when I say I deserve it, that's really code for me for I've done this amount of hours, I've put in this amount of effort, so I should be having this result. And as we all know, that isn't always the case. So when we look at the definition of deserve, it really means that I'm worthy, I earned it. And also what the dictionary says, to be given something because of the way we behave or we act. So that doesn't always happen. So I'm making two assumptions here. So the one is that, life is fair, but we all know that isn't the case, that sometimes good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people sometimes. But also the assumption I'm making is there's a certain standard. So I'm just going to give it a number. When I spend 1,000 hours in my business, it's going to look like this. Or when I spend 1,000 hours in the gym, my body looks like this. Or when I make 1,000 healthy food choices, my health is going to look like this, which we all know is not the case. So there's two instances that we use this I deserve it, which is not serving us. So let me just quickly share them with you. So the one is where we're working towards a goal and we're pursuing that goal and we say to ourselves, I deserve, but we're not there yet. That's important. So we're working towards the goal, but we're not there yet. And we tell ourselves, I deserve it. And that brings up that entitlement. So when I feel that entitled, then immediately I start questioning myself. I think, oh, well, why don't I have the result? Am I doing something wrong? Is there something wrong with me? And the second thing we do is we start comparing. So we look at everybody else that has the result we want, and we think, oh, they have it, why don't I have it? It's almost like we're saying, oh, well, sometimes we think that we started off at the same point, but obviously we don't know for sure. So that person was maybe in the same class as me, and she's already way ahead of me. I'm still here. So the result we really create for ourselves is that we make it impossible for us to move forward and actually get closer to our goal. So the second way we use it is when we're pursuing this goal, we've actually had a bit of success in this goal, and then we tell ourselves, I deserve it. We feel this justification to go and do something. So for instance, a perfect example is when I want to lose weight. I've already maybe lost 10 kilograms. And now there's a cupcake, or I've come home from work and I've had a stressful day. And now I justify my action by eating the cupcake or drinking the wine. I feel justified. I deserve it. And again, the result we create for ourselves is not positive. It actually just takes us further away from our goal. So this is things we subtly do to ourselves, and how we can turn that around. And maybe in an alternative sentence that we can tell ourselves is something that helps us and drives us forward. So that could be something like, I'm going to keep going no matter what. Another one I have is, I am on my own journey. Another one is, I'm going to keep going no matter what. I'm on my own journey. This is my path. It doesn't need to look like someone else's path. So the solution really here then is to start looking inwards instead of looking outwards. So if I start looking inwards, I think of, why again am I doing this? Why have I set this goal for myself? I think of all the ways that I'm going and learning, how I'm putting myself out there. I want to see and start looking for evidence that what I am doing is actually working. And I'm going to start asking myself empowering questions. Questions like, okay, I've got this goal. What else can I do to get there? What haven't I tried yet? What is there still that I can maybe do or change to get there? So today was all about phrases that we keep repeating to ourselves that is sometimes not useful. And as we know, what we think is actually what manifests in our lives. So we have to become aware of those little phrases we use, and we have to change it to things that are actually working. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Norma. Awesome. I really enjoyed that segment, and I hope to see you back next week. Usually you say you'll be back next week, so I'm sure you will be. So yeah, let's do a couple of announcements quickly. The first one is going to be around the International Speaker and Influencer Program that starts early in 2023. This is literally your last chance to enter. The link is down below in the description to make it easy. So do go and register your interest for this. And one of the questions we ask is why? The reason why we do this is because this is a fully sponsored program, so it's not going to cost you anything. Now, one of the things that really stood out for me that I just realized at the FBI conference this week is I was meeting up with so many people, and there are these amazing people that went through this program in the last 2 years who I've now seen on TV. I've heard them on radio. They do all sorts of things in the media, and very comfortable to do so. And I can fondly remember how sort of awkward they felt when they started this program. And it's just amazing to see how far they've come in the time since they've completed this program. So I'm going to name names. There's a whole host of them. Early next week, I'm going to release a little bit of a teaser video to sort of showcase some of them talking at the Global Financial Planning Conference earlier this year. But that is what this is about. So the Speaker and Influencer Program is an international program. It's a multi-award winning program. We have coaches from around the world that help you basically and we help specifically financial planning professionals all around the world to develop their public image, to flourish into thought leaders, and to deliver show-stopping talks. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to go on a stage. It does, however, mean that you are able to communicate well. You are able to deliver a message in the way that you want to. You can have an impact. You can have great client meetings. You can have great virtual meetings. Like we go through so much in this program, and we really leave you with a lot of these kind of skills when you finish. So definitely something you want to check out. The link is down in the description. There's an email going out as I'm speaking, I think in the next 11 minutes or so, also with the details and the link to go and register. Very simple. You'll see at the bottom of the screen, financialplanningconference.global. And just go there, fill in your details, and just share with us why. And please, doen 'n bietjie moeite, take your time and tell us why, because that's important. We need you to be committed right to the end. Because if I give the slot to you and not to someone else who really wanted it, simply just because your name is in there, like the one with the best why is the ones that are going to get in. And we only have place for 30 again this year. So join us. You'll get to meet and network with people from around the world as well. And you'll have access to the Propulsion Pro platform during this time because we run it all from there. So definitely so many reasons to go and check that out. All right, then the last thing that I do want to share with you just again quickly is the Propulsion Tech event. I'm going to talk a lot about this in the coming weeks. So we're putting on our next virtual event. It's going to run over 2 days, the 7th and 8th of March. So please diarize that. We are bringing you the best tech event for financial planners in the world. I'm telling you today. That's a big statement. What we are doing is different from what you may have experienced before. There will be some of the things maybe that you know, but there's going to be a lot of things we're bringing that you won't know. And we also want to call on anybody who works in the tech space and who offers tech to financial planners to get in contact with me to sort of so that I can invite you to our information session on the 31st of October, and so that we can tell you more about what this is about and how you can get involved if you're interested. Righty, so with that, I am way ahead of my time this morning. So good stuff. And it's also because now Nikki also congratulated all the people and named them. I had all their names here and wanted to say congrats to all of them. I do want to reiterate just quickly that I must agree with Nikki. For me, the thing that stood out most is how I got to talk to you. Normally at the convention or any other sort of thing of this nature, I end up in the corner with a coffee and somebody I know. That's typically what happens. This year was so different. I chatted to so many people. People chatted to me. It was so amazing to connect and just be there in person and experience the vibe. So just I wanted to reiterate what you just said. Anyway, so with that, that's the end of the announcements. And next up, I'm going to introduce you to Henry Walton, who last night for a moment was Watson. I don't know how I made that mistake. Luckily, I picked it up before he could pick it up. But so Henry, on the other side of this, I'm going to be talking to you, and we're going to talk all about virtual assistants and all the things that you need to consider and some pitfalls and things of that liking. Right, but let's get into the featured segment today. Henry, warm welcome to Propulsion Live this morning.
How you doing? You could have got away with getting my name wrong. I would never have known.
No, I don't know why. Like when I read through the description, I went, but somewhere I'm sure I wrote Watson because it was Walton in my description. But then I was like, so I go back and in the title, it says like the title and goes featuring Henry Watson. But the thumbnail was right, the description was right, everything was right. So I don't know why that happened.
It's got a good ring to it. It's fine.
Yeah, it does work, and it does sound like you know, Mr. Sherlock. So exactly. That's all good. Anyway, just a warm welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining me. You're joining all the way from Cyprus, so I think it's a little bit earlier there than it is here. So thank you.
An hour later.
Is it later? Yeah. Oh, fantastic. No, I felt bad for making you get up now. I don't feel bad anymore. So that's good. Henry is the founder of AVirtual and PrimePixels, which is 2 companies we'll be talking about this morning. And we'll get a little bit into the story later on, but I want to jump right into sort of when we talk about things like we've been talking on the show a lot about outsourcing. And I've been encouraging people to say, look, I mean, you're going to get to a point where you feel like there's too much work for you, but you can't either one afford to appoint somebody like on a permanent basis, or you may be in a situation where you just don't have enough work for such a person. So there's too much work just for you, but there's not enough work to keep somebody busy full time, and that is usually a sort of a clear indication. But because of those conversations, obviously what comes up in South Africa specifically is like, but where do I find a virtual assistant and what do we do, et cetera, et cetera. So that's sort of what we want to get into today. But my first question to you is like, when does outsourcing make sense? And on that question, I want to ask you like, you know, who is it really for? Because is this for everybody or is this just for certain people?
No, it's a really good question. I mean, in some ways, even the term is slightly problematic, right? Because, 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, I mean, outsourcing as a term would be used for larger companies and was, I guess, a little bit of a dirty word as well sometimes. You know, it was synonymous with poor quality. But in reality, small businesses, sole entrepreneurs have outsourced all the time. They just use freelancers. So I think, who is it for? When is it for? I mean, it is for every type of business. And it really, I think you nailed it on the head when you said when things are finding too much. I mean, you've got to look at finding a solution for that. And your solutions are hire someone in-house, get freelancers, or outsource, for want of a better word, to a different company. And then I think, depending on the stage that your business is at, the role, how much you value flexibility, how diverse the role is. I think we find a lot of the time, a lot of the clients that come to us, the reason why they outsource elements of the work is it's generally not one person. And hiring one person in-house is very expensive. And let's say a virtual assistant or marketing manager as an example, it's very rare that they're really good at all the things that you need. So in the stages that most businesses are at, and especially in kind of uncertain times, flexibility is probably valued above all else. So when you can provide, flexibility to companies, but exceptional services across a range of different roles, you're providing something that isn't actually achievable anywhere else. You can't get it with freelancers in the same way you can't get it in-house. So when you have a range of different needs, when the budget's tight and you value flexibility and there's some uncertainty, then it's a very, very good way to go.
Yeah, and you make me now think, I never even thought about this, is that it's often if you want to, I'm sitting with similar things where there's actually a range of things that needs to be done, but typically those things are done by one person. So not all of them, like each thing that needs to be done is done by a person, and you can't employ for all of them, and you need a diverse range of things, like whether it's marketing or editing or whether it's like whatever it may be. But if you look at something like outsourcing this to a virtual assistant like yours, obviously, then you are able to get access to different people, and you have flexibility because you can up your hours, you can down your hours, you can reduce your hours, you can do all sorts of things, and you can use different things at different times. So which I think is quite important. Just which areas of a business, Henry, is really the best to outsource? If I'm a small business, right? Because that's what you guys also focus on, if I've got it right. You focus on the small business. Like, which areas have you seen are probably the first ones that people start outsourcing? And if I say outsource, I mean to a virtual assistant of some sort. And which ones are probably the best to start outsourcing when you haven't done this before?
Sure. So administration is obviously the big one. And this is sometimes low-level administration, but actually a lot of the time it's client interfacing as well. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs where they get a virtual assistant, and the virtual assistant will do kind of remote front of house. They'll do client onboarding. They'll interact with the clients in a way that possibly the company owner doesn't need to. Customer service, customer support is a big one as well. Social media is a huge one. So marketing and administration are the two big ones. And just a quick one, I think when we talk internally in our company, when we talk about virtual assistants, it's very hard to say the difference, but it's actually, we always talk about virtual assistants as in the kind of, not a person, as in a range of activities. Because I think sometimes, again, even the term virtual assistant, we tend to use executive assistants just because of the type of people that we have, is kind of synonymous with this person that perhaps hasn't got much experience or hasn't got particular skills in a certain area. And for us, that's not true. There is definitely the lower end of kind of admin administration, but it's not that so much for us.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, there's like, it's always like, what are the things that work well, and where do we go, and where should we start, etc. And I take your point. It's about virtual assistants and not virtual assistants. Or the person. It's about the services that you can deliver virtually and the support that you can deliver virtually. Just before, I want to talk a little bit about the pitfalls, but before we do that, I want to just quickly the background of AVirtual, right? So when did this start and how did this start? So because I just want to give people a sense of how long you guys have been around and that you're coming from a place of like, look, I mean, we've been doing this now for a while. Before we get into the pitfalls thing.
Sure. So we've been around for 7-8 years, probably one of the top 2 or 3 providers for the UK market. But also, I think as a recruiter in South Africa for virtual assistants, we employ over 300 people at the moment. We've done it for a long time. It was started, I guess, like a lot of businesses, because we've run a few businesses and had large businesses before, and we've always needed this solution, and it's not out there. You know, we've spent a lot of time on Upwork, trying to find good people, hiring people, trying to get those, those people to work well together. It wasn't there. And obviously you can go and find, perhaps a virtual assistant to help with some admin or some personal admin, but they typically didn't have the structure around them, like HR, client service, wellness programs, peer-to-peer support, training. They hadn't gone through a serious vetting process. So even the kind of vetting part, was time intensive when you're trying to do a whole lot of other stuff. So, we thought, well, why not do it ourselves? And it started off really like that, and then it snowballed pretty quickly. AVirtual became market leader pretty quickly. We started PrimePixels, the marketing arm of that, about 2 years later. That grew over the last 24 months, has grown exceptionally quickly. We've got a really great internal team, so great managers. Our chairman, Andrew Valentine, was the owner of Streetcar that sold to Zipcar in the US, very experienced in terms of growing and then scaling companies. So there are lots of, I guess, smaller companies out there and boutique companies, but we're pretty ambitious in what we're trying to do, the scale of it, but also our obsession with quality, I think really sets us apart.
Yeah. So in this journey, and it's actually great to know that you weren't one of those companies that started during, the pandemic and lockdowns and all sorts of things, because there suddenly was a need. You've been doing this a long time before the pandemic was even a thought, or even anybody knew it was coming, or it was going to happen. So in this time, from the time that you started up till now, what are some of the pitfalls that one should look out for? Because surely there's certain things that you think you get a virtual assistant probably, and it's just going to work. So what are some of the things that you see, like maybe then this is not such a good idea for someone?
So I think support structure around the virtual assistant or around the remote employee is incredibly important. We have put a huge amount of work into our culture, remote culture. We've been fully remote for the last 5 years. And it takes a lot of work and effort and passion and the right values to keep a remote workforce engaged and productive and happy. And ultimately, this model doesn't work if you have staff that really don't genuinely care about their clients. So I think one is looking at the infrastructure around the resource is incredibly important. Things do go wrong. People get sick. People, change. Maybe they get another job. And having that structure around them so that the service that you provide to the clients is always uninterrupted is hugely important. Also things like IT support. We, in some ways, for the remote employees of the remote resources, we act as a kind of payroll facilitator, HR facilitator, IT support facilitator, so that you don't have to have any of those annoyances with kind of managing someone or recruiting someone or sorting someone out when they've got issues. So that infrastructure is hugely important. Personality fit is almost number one. And it's a hard thing to get right. And we always laugh with clients when we chat to them and say, right, we're going to match you up with the right person, because it's very hard to explain. And I think you only really get that from experience. We've placed over 2,000 people in small businesses over the last 7 years. We've spoken to thousands and thousands of businesses at different stages and personalities. If you get the personality fit right, you can always get over the kind of the bumps in the road, and there are bumps. It's not flawless. We're dealing with people here, So you have to invest in those people. And just because it's remote, it's not, it's not a robot. It's not something that is disconnected from your business. So we spend a lot of time with our clients helping them to understand how to bring remote people into their company and how to work with them. So yeah, when you get the personality fit right, everything else is much, much easier. If you get that wrong, it goes wrong very quickly.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about how do you treat a virtual assistant? I'm talking about manners and treating them well and being courteous and, but I mean, like, do you treat them as a service provider, or do you treat them like you would an employee, or like what is that dynamic like?
You ask me how should you, or how do
people? No. Okay, so I mean, we can talk about how do people, but also how should, if you want this to work well, what is the best way? Like, do you treat them just as, oh, they're outside and I'm paying you and you got to, versus somebody that works for you, part of your culture, your values, all of those kind of things? Like, what is the practice?
As soon as we provide someone and we match them up, we always say to people, this person's now part of your team, they're part of your company. And if you want to maximize their potential, you have to do that. You bring them into your stand-ups, you bring them into your cultural initiatives. You always get the best results that way. It's actually nicer for the client as well. It's quite a strange thing to have someone at the on a end of a digital screen that you don't want to have a conversation with, or you don't want to, you're not happy to spend even just 5 minutes a week with. It's not going to work well. So they're an employee. They are an employee on a flexible contract and on hours that you can scale up and down, and with a whole load of added benefits that you don't normally get. But they're an employee. And I think when people get that right, they become uber reliant on them. And often they go through this transformation where it's like, oh, and then kind of the relationship opens up on both sides and they become absolutely pivotal to that business.
And then, I mean, does that then also lead to people typically giving more? Obviously, I mean, if I can sort of, assume from what you're saying is that because of that reliance, now I give more and more things to that person to do, or to a service provider such as you, because maybe my person that I work with isn't focusing or specialized in a specific area, but there's somebody else that maybe, and then typically you start using more of this. But also, is there a point where people would go like, okay, now there's enough, I'm going to stop using the virtual services and then rather employ someone? Does that happen? How often does that happen?
It happens. So we have something called a buyout, where clients essentially take the resource off and employ them directly. It happens once every 3 months, and we've got over 300 clients on retainer, so not that much. I'm thinking of one client, and he won't mind me talking about him because he talks about us a lot, but a guy called Derek Notman in the States, who's quite an influential IFA. And I remember he came into us maybe 3 years ago on a 15-hour social media package, very dubious, I don't know. But he was in the States, he knew Cape Town, he loved Cape Town, and he's been with us for about 3 years, and has, that 15 hours at times has gone to the equivalent of kind of multiple full-time people, and uses it for every aspect of his business. He's talked a lot about, that kind of journey, that flexibility. So yeah, it grows. That's part of, that's part of it. Yeah, I think the other thing is when people get the benefit, they typically don't want to lose the benefits of flexibility and agility. Like, that doesn't normally go away in business, right? So there's very few times where someone goes, oh, we've got to now take this person in-house, but it does happen occasionally.
Okay. And then, so if you really want to communicate well with somebody virtually, I mean, I feel like often, so I've got 2 employees in my business. They're both, well, one is my wife and one is my daughter. So my wife just sits right next to me or just in the next room, but my daughter is over the other side of Joburg. So, I often find it frustrating to go, not to talk to my daughter. She's awesome, But to go on a Zoom call, book time, and have, sort of these virtual meetings to convey what we need to do, is that the only way that one can communicate, or what is the most effective way to communicate with a team that's virtual? Because I think we all zoomed out, we're all tired of Teams and all these kind of things, and that's why we enjoy the convention so much. But what works best? Like, what is the most efficient way? I mean, obviously there's also, and I'll talk a little bit about when you start, but there's a time that it'll take to get to know one another. But once you do, what's the most effective ways you found to communicate and go back and forth?
It might not be the most enjoyable, but you said efficient. It is the most efficient way. And I think especially for the types of things that we focus on and the types of things that typically people use virtual assistants or remote social media managers, for, I think if you need to do very high level creative or strategic thinking, yeah, it's very hard to replace that getting in a room together and getting the whiteboard up. And but for the type of things that we do and efficiency, it's Zoom, calls, emails, the normal thing. We try and encourage people to have calls and not just do everything on email or on WhatsApp. So we still do try and encourage at least once a week, even if sometimes the client doesn't want to. It can be quite easy to keep firing stuff off sometimes, but jump on a call, connect, do an icebreaker, talk about how's life going, and then maybe look over the tasks and the activities for the week or the next week. But in this business it's remote, so for us that's definitely, in terms of saving time and efficiency, that's the best way.
Yeah, cool. Then just around the services, so I think you can sort of split services into two categories. I won't talk about the types of services, but if you look at them overall about how people think about virtual assistants, is that there's the standard things that comes to mind, and I think we mentioned some of them. But if we can maybe just what are the most prominent things again for people that they outsource, specifically when they start off? Because I think a lot of the people watching today and they'll watch the recording is considering to do this. It's not something they're already doing. So what are some of the first things and the standard things almost that would do? And then I want to know about things that's fantastic for virtual assistants and it's perfect for that, but people typically don't think about those.
Sure. So the obvious ones are financial admin. So invoicing, debtor chasing, with programs like Xero and Receipt Bank or whatnot, CRM management, client onboarding, calendar management, email management, client service and kind of escalation of client inquiries or client issues. Those are probably the main ones. And then there's also a lot of, within administration, there's a lot of project management as well. So for people that are doing perhaps events and need, there's a 2-3 month build up, there's a lot of project management around the admin and logistics of that, whether it's dealing with suppliers or travel booking. So that's probably the main stuff on the virtual assistant side. And then social media management, posting, content creation. And interestingly, I think when people think about virtual assistants, they do tend to veer towards the admin part. But really what we're talking about here is remote roles and flexibility, and they're being able to kind of tack into a whole bunch of different services. So for IFAs and for business coaches of who we work with a lot, LinkedIn is often a really, really big one. So everyone knows that they should be producing content and networking. It's hard. It's a lot of time, and to do it effectively, again, it takes a few people. To get LinkedIn campaigns working, it's not really one person. It's not a virtual assistant. You've got to have someone that can strategize it. You've got to have someone that can write really great copy. You've got to have someone that can actually design the ads. If you want to do in-mail, you've got to have someone that understands paid. It's 3 or 4 people. So those are the main ones. And I think often people start thinking about admin and then, that we need that. And then often kind of segue into a lot of the marketing aspects as well.
And what are some of the things? So, I mean, so yes, there's the social media thing. And I agree with you. Like when I thought about this, it was all because I've got a pain as far as admin and certain things around that goes, right? So it's taking my time away from things that I should really be focusing on. Social media for a lot of people still today is like, oh, it's a nice to have. I'll do it one day. I'll get there. So it's not the first thing that they would probably think of, although this is perfect for that. What other kind of things are there that possibly people are not like, this will be great to use a virtual support system or service to do certain awesome things that you might not be thinking about?
So another big one, and I think we pride ourselves on this, is our sales team. We have an exceptional sales team. Typically, when we get a lead, we call that lead within about 7 seconds. And when we've done mystery shopping around other partners, you can submit a lead and you might not hear back for 2 days, and then you get a proposal another day later. And the reason why we're so good at that, I think, is because it's a competitive market, but it's the same in every market. You can't afford to sit on leads. And typically with solo entrepreneurs, we all like the creative ideas and we like getting that stuff done, and we want the business, but tend not to be very good often at sales or sales admin. So there's nothing that can replace the company owner or founder, doing a call and building that relationship and doing the sale. But the admin around it, if you haven't got automated workflows in a sales CRM like HubSpot or Infusionsoft, Salesforce, there's a lot of admin, sales admin, of chasing up, following up. That sales call is not done in a call. It's done on that kind of nurturing around the leads. That can take a lot, and typically it's not something that people enjoy at all. So sales admin, I would say, is another great role.
Yeah, that's something I would never have thought of. So thanks for that, Henry. Then I want to go into a bit of a quick fire round. There's 4 questions I want to ask you, right?
Uh-oh.
And it's like, in the best, shortest way that you can answer these questions. 1 words are not allowed, but you are allowed to use maybe 2 or 3 sentences. I did not prepare you for this. So,
okay. All right, let's go.
so let's go. This is all about, I want to go a little bit of a deep dive on virtual assistants. So there's a couple of questions I want to ask you. So I'm confident you've got this. So the first question is, what makes a great virtual assistant?
Proactivity, organization, and communication. Those 3.
Awesome. Then what skills and qualities are important?
Proactive.
That's the same.
Good communicator, personable as well, and interested.
Very important. And then this is a big one. Like, how do I match with the right person? So if I come to AVirtual, I speak to you, I speak to Kristen, whoever I speak to, and I say, this is my need. Whose responsibility is it, and how do I match with the right person? Maybe that's going to be a bit of a longer answer.
So 1, trust the company that you're working with, because they will have done this far more than you have. Again, we've done it for 2,000 people. You might have done it once, and then interview them. And it sounds like a simple thing, but often people will go, okay, I'm not, interview them, make sure that you're happy with them, ask them questions about their background, and so like you would with any employee.
Awesome. Then who manages this person, this virtual assistant or virtual assistants team then, if you will?
You do. They are part of your company just for a set number of hours per month, but they are also managed internally by our organization. So we have an HR department, client services department. They sit in pods with the pod leader. But yeah, they're your employee, and you manage them how you want. Yeah,
awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about AVirtual specifically now. Tell us a little bit, Henry, how does your services work? Do you offer services? Derek Notman is that's how I got onto you, as I said earlier. Oh, yeah. He introduced me. I contacted Derek. I know him. And I know we've chatted about this. He was on my podcast before we had this show. And I reached out to him to say, like, I'm looking for people, like, who do you use? And then he put me in touch with you guys, because I know he always goes on about his team in Cape Town. So, and that's the important thing, I think, for everybody on the call to understand as well, that the people that work for this is based in South Africa. They're not, it may be a UK based business, but the team is based actually in South Africa. So just a little bit, how does your services work? And then I'll ask you some more questions around that.
Sure. So very simply, I mean, we have short-term retainers, and they're set by a certain number of hours per month. So average sign-on package for us is about 25 hours a month. And that's the time that you get of your virtual assistant, once monthly. You can upgrade or downgrade the package at any time. So let's say, for example, you're 2 weeks in and you're throwing loads of work at your virtual assistant and you've run out of time. You can either early renew the package, so the package just starts again and the renewal date changes. You can upgrade the amount of hours if you needed to. You could also downgrade the amount of hours. And then we also do add-ons as well. So maybe once, every 3 months, you might need to kind of do a top up. It's almost like a mobile phone kind of company with bundles. Full transparency in terms of how time is spent. So we use a program called Harvest for time tracking. So you can get a timesheet daily if you wanted, or weekly or monthly. And out of your plan, you can also access other services across the organization. So let's say, for example, you're working with your virtual assistant and they've got their monthly items that's ticking along and always happening, but then you need a lead magnet created. So you can chat to your virtual assistant, go, right, I've got this idea, I've got a loose, vision of what I want it to be. They can introduce you to the creative team and you can work with the copywriters out of your existing plan. Yeah. Don't do any long-term retainers. So month 1, instant cancellation, and month 2 and on 30 days notice.
Cool. And then, any guarantees and maybe SLAs and kind of things because I know just from my experience in the last 2 weeks specifically is like you guys are phenomenal on following up and you're very responsive. You're not pushy. You're very what's the right word? Sorry, my English is escaping me in a second, but generous is not the word. The courteous, etc. So the way in which I've experienced you in the short period of time has been phenomenal. But do you offer guarantees? What are your SLAs? And then a big question around, I think, but I'll get into that. Let me first stop there. There's one other big question I want to ask you. It's
a really good question. So at AVirtual in month 1, we do offer money back guarantee. So if you were really not happy at all with the service, then you can cancel it immediately and money back guarantee. Typically that never happens. What occasionally happens is that someone might, after a while, decide that it's not the right person. And the needs don't go away, but we can replace that person at no charge, and we cover all of the onboarding training, and we can normally do that within 48 hours. In terms of SLAs and kind of guarantees of response times, it's really hard because we've got clients that go from 10, 15 hours a month to some larger companies that have the equivalent of kind of multiple full-time people with us. But typically, even though your VA is not working for you full time, you can normally expect a response from them, again, depending on the size of the package, within an hour or 2. They might not be able to get to the task right there and then because they've got other clients and they're not your resource full time. But generally speaking, within an hour or 2, and then they'll let you know when the task will be done. And again, this is why we're so big on communication, that if you get that right, then the rest of it's very easy. Other things we have something called the 10% rule. So a lot of this is cultural. So rather than trying to get, going off saying, okay, I'm going to go and do this job, I'm going to go and spend 5 hours of your time or your budget on this job and get it wrong. If you're unsure, get on a call. If you're still unsure, do 10% of the work, check, am I on the right line, and then finish it. So a lot of it comes from the training and support that we provide. And then otherwise, it's down to our recruitment, it's down to our history, it's down to the fact we don't do long-term retainers. And not having long-term retainers is honestly one of the biggest incentives for quality, because you've just got to be good. And if you're good, clients stay. And if you're not good, they go, and they go quickly.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. I'm not going to get into a story now, but there's stuff that I've experienced before where it's exactly that. Like if it's my internet service provider, for example, I've been with for 11 years, 12 years now, and it's month to month from day one. The others where I've been before, where it was 24 months, 36 months, I left them all. And I left with a bitter taste in my mouth. So these short-term things I think do work better. Then just quickly, what about information, confidentiality, privacy, POPI, GDPR, all these kind of things? Is that, because I think that's any financial advisor's main concern. They are so concerned about POPI and stressed that somebody's going to see their info, or use their info, or their client's info, whatever it may be. So how do you do that?
Obviously adhere to POPI in South Africa and GDPR in the UK. We often sign NDAs with our clients as well if they want us to. I mean, it's the same with all of our clients. Always has been that privacy is of utmost importance. We don't own any of the data or keep any of the data at all. So even when a client leaves, it's all of the data is transitioned back to the client. Some clients are more demanding on others in terms of what they want us to do and to sign. And that's fine. We're giving you the resource, so we need to fit in with your expectations, and if there's other things that we might need to sign or agree upon, then that's not a problem either.
Yeah. So how does one get started, Henry? If someone's interested to learn more, to see if this is a good fit for them, how can they get started?
So firstly, I'm really thanks so much about the compliments on the our processes or experience so far. I mean, we really do try very hard. The first part, is we call it a sales call. It's not really, it's a consultation. Let's have a chat. Let's make sure that it's the right time, that we can deliver on what you want, and that we've got the right people. So really, the first port of call, and you can share my email address. Very happy for people to contact me directly. I can bring an account director in, and I'll jump on a call with them as well. I think especially for type things like this, I'm very happy to put my time in and to make sure people are being looked after.
Awesome. Good stuff. So I've got the website address on the screen as well. I'll also link it down below in the description. So avirtual.co.uk. I'll also link to PrimePixels, which is more the social media marketing and all that kind of stuff. So there's awesome services that they deliver there as well. And then I'm happy to also share with you that Henry and his team has agreed to offer 15% discount to Propulsion Pro members. So if you are a Propulsion Pro member, the standard rate's less 15% for the first 12 months, as far as I've got that, Henry. So thank you very much for offering that. We really appreciate it. We're a great bunch of people. They're good people to work with. We apply the Rule 6 of the All Blacks 10 rules. I won't share what that is, but we apply Rule 6. So if somebody wants to go and look that up. So a great bunch of people. But thank you very much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. There's some great insights and a good starting point for anybody who is considering this and looking for a solution. And just any final words from you?
No, just thank you very much for having me. I think you do a terrific job on this. It's very inspiring. So good job.
Thank you very much, Henry. Have a good time, and we'll chat soon.
Cool. Take care.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
Righty, so I hope that you enjoyed this morning's session. And remember, if you're a Propulsion Pro member, you get 15% off on the rates. And they are very affordable. Trust me, they are extremely affordable. It's crazy. It's definitely worthwhile checking out. And the flexibility that comes with this is the big thing for me as well. Not just from how much time or how much money you spend in a month with them, but also the different services that you can use. And things and adding on and that. So I think it's a amazing offer. So next week, my guest is Mickey Kambale from Innate, and we're going to tackle the important topic of replatforming. This is a big thing that I don't think we really necessarily know about, and necessarily that we even think about, and would probably think that there will be an impact on our business, on the industry, the profession, as all the different asset managers are replatforming. So what does that even mean? What is the impact and all of that? So Mickey is my guest next week. So join us then. So we'll be back next week. Same time, same place. Stay safe, be blessed and prosper. And remember to raise the bar. Bye-bye.